And welcome back, our dear viewers. As we promised at the beginning of the show, that we are going to talk today about the army in Egypt. When the first army in Egypt has started, when the real army commander in Egypt did start to rule his army, and what were the first inaugurations, the first conquering missions for the Egyptian army back in history. To shed more light on that, we are very much delighted to have our guest for today, Mr. Yasser Kamel. He is an Egyptologist, tour guide, and an author. Good morning, Mr. Yasser.
To you, and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy New Year to you too, sir. And let me ask the question Mahi just raised. When was the first army of Egypt?
Well, of course, Egyptians in their prehistory and even Stone Age, they used to have weapons and used to have smaller army like. I mean, used to have mace made out of, mace like a weapon, made out of ivory, made out of stone. And during the Pyramid Age, which is the Golden Age, they used to have enough soldiers for an army. They had no yet horses, but they had war ads, they had flint arrows, they had flint knives. So they had enough to look after the country, protect the borders, and they had security around all frontiers of Egypt. And they were not fearing anybody. Well, the other way, they are feared by everybody. So they were rich enough that they didn't have to have a regular army yet. So, and leaders of the army were relatives of the king. I mean, it was a very high dignity job that would not be given to a normal person. For example, we have Rahotep, is actually the son of
he was in which dynasty, Mr.
Exactly,
Yes?
the 4th dynasty, Rahotep. His statue is in the Egyptian Museum, and he is actually a brother of Cheops, Khufu, and son of King Snefru, and he was the overseer of the Egyptian army. In the slides, you should see his picture. And so the Egyptians were rich, happy farmers, had a great river, calm, peaceful, and the only side they had to conquer and maybe to take a defend themselves against with southern Egypt at that time. Like Nubians, not the northern lower Nubia, the southern Nubia, sound like those were more aggressive or had more like being naturally gifted to fight. And the Nile helped them to reach the north faster because they could just pay less efforts once they sailed to north. Against the Egyptians would have to go against a stream. If they're northern country on the Nile, you must row hard to get to Sudan, for example, and the vice versa is true. And so the Golden Age of farming, Pyramid Age, there was a normal army. I mean, they had no chariots yet, they had no horses even known. And they had flint, they had bronze weapons. So that's called the Bronze Age. Bronze Age, they had like war ads, hatchet, they had weapons, sickles. Sometimes later on they had to. All right, so the horses were like in the slide. The horses were just like introduced to Africa later on. Unfortunately, came by invasion. The Hyksos horses. So the downfall of the old kingdom resulted chaos. No kingship strong enough to hold anything. Nomes were ruled independently by nomarchs. So Egypt was controlled. Then we had a middle kingdom to rise, and Egypt became much stronger. Then with the downfall of the middle kingdom, they had the invasion of the Hyksos, who came with horsemen, and they invented chariots, and they used different weapons. They introduced the composite bow, which is Egyptian never heard of. Used different swords, different.
So it was a tough battle with the Hyksos here.
Exactly, because like the Hyksos, just by good luck, they had been experienced with horses, and the horse was an animal.
So as you have been saying here, that they had different tools that was not introduced to the ancient Egyptians.
Mainly the horse, the animal that never been used in any battles before. And they managed to attack the north easily because of the speed of the horse. They also had wheels and chariots for the first time. And they used a very advanced composite bow that can shoot for long distance, or like for those long distance kill. And so the Egyptians had to learn how to copy these things, enhance. So after they got rid of the Hyksos by efforts of kings like Second Rad and Ahmos, they managed to develop what the Hyksos left behind. I mean, they had to use the horse, breed the horses, learn how to use them. then developed the chariot to become lighter, faster. They enhanced the beautiful sword, the beautiful composite bow to become much better, much stronger. And later on, they invented the khibish, or the khibish sword.
And we are still seeing some photos for different...
This is the one you see. There's actually the fight in Habu's temple of Ramses III. They developed martial arts, like you see there. And the Egyptians at that time, they managed to play techniques in battle, like rolling, like you would see with
But were they doing that during the battles itself, or how was the battle taking place?
Well, earlier, like I said, probably the Middle Kingdom, and after they used all the infantry.
And we are seeing here battles by hand.
This is exactly the combat in the field of Habu Temple. Habu Temple, the war between Egypt and the Sea people. Egypt later on became a very attractive land to invasion because of the prosperity, the wealth, and synchronized with the downfall of the southern European civilizations, like the Minoans, for example. They had natural disasters, they had erupted volcanoes. So southern Europe had a lot of trouble, so they found that Egypt has the right wealth, and they were striving for wealth.
My question is, sir, when the pharaohs or the kings of Egypt decided to have an army, was it with Narmer or Na'mer, I wanna pronounce it well, to unite the country? So it was a must to have an organized army to do it, or was to defend the country, or was to fight those who are trying to occupy us?
The motivation of the unification was a good reason behind an army, a relatively smaller army. The number of the soldiers of Mena's army were a few thousands, I mean. But actually the biggest time that we had to use a serious army was during Ramses II fight, Ramses II with the Hittites. Hittites.
I hope that they are not the grandpas of the Houthis in Yemen.
I know they are not. I mean the Hittites from Asia, Anatolia, Asia Minor. And Ramses II used a very massive regular army. The thing they had...
With the wheels?
Exactly, of course the chariots were developed already and used much, and they used a very unique sword called the khibish sword, which has a scimitar and a sickle shape. It's in a slide you should see later. Then they had used 100,000 soldiers, and that was the biggest army heard of in ancient times. And they confronted the Hittites and their allied forces in the Battle of Kadesh, on the banks of the Oranges River. And Ramses II defeated them, and depicted the whole story in Ramses II temples, such as the Ramesseum and the temples of Abu Simbel. And a pharaoh came later on with the same desire, same talent, and same gift of spirit of war, and that was Ramses III. But he was maybe less luckier than Ramses II, because at that time circumstances around the middle, the southern European, they were attacking in huge number, and he kept fighting for ages until he defeated them. Ramses III and his descendants of kings, which ended by Ramses XI, by that time they had their army exhausted in fighting the invasions from everywhere, from east, from west and east, north, south. I mean, they were surrounding Egypt all corners. However, they accomplished victory, but that weakened the army and weakened the economy. So the 21st dynasty had the first priest kings ever. The pharaoh is not there anymore to control. And the priests took over. And already they were rich before, they owned lands of the temple, owned the fleet of the temple. So Egypt lost the kingship completely.
Yes, and we are here seeing some...
the Middle Kingdom soldiers. That's the Egyptian army during the Middle Kingdom.
A whole army.
An army, They used they started to use the Egyptian regular army at that time, Middle Kingdom. And they also used the best archerymen from the Nubians. So they were just sharp on targets and ideal. This is Ra-Hotep, son of Snefru and a brother to Cheops. He was the overseer of the army at the time.
So have we had in those ages people who are responsible for training or for teaching the soldiers or teaching the ordinary citizens, the ordinary Egyptians how to be soldiers and how to be good fighters when it comes to going into a battle or defending our borders or defending ourselves from any enemy?
Definitely that happened, but we don't have any document, but we think that happened. During weak times or dark ages, we think we had no regular army, so locals had to defend themselves. Even temples like the Karnak, they were designed to have giant gates, massive walls, very high fences, and they had a defensive function, or the temple was a shelter for the Egyptians in emergency or wars. The massive Karnak would just open its gate and allow locals to rush into the, had the lake to provide water, had the green around, so the locals had to learn that technique. So I was telling you about what happened after the Egyptian army weakened by the invaders. We lost completely control, and we had to use sometimes mercenaries. Like, for example, what happened was Bismatic, the first of the 26th dynasty, could not reunify Egypt.
In San al-Hagar?
Second?
In San al-Hagar. San al-Hagar now. This is where Bismatic had his capital of Egypt.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, he used mercenaries from Greece, and they came with iron and unique spears and helmets, and he hired 100,000 Greek mercenaries to accomplish a unification. And he had no indigenous army anymore, so no left Egyptian army at the time. And those 100,000 soldiers that he hired, they were like the core of the Greek dynasty started by Alexander the Great later on. So we just, like I said, after we failed to look after our army, but we had nobody to defend. Even Bismatic, who was an Egyptian king, could not have better deal than asking to use Greek mercenary, had different weapons, and made a unification. Then that dynasty collapsed later on once this is a dagger of King Tut from the Egyptian Museum. So they made, at the time, they used gold, used silver. The iron was started to use iron, but iron was not very widely spread. The Persians took over from the 26th dynasty.
And we are seeing here another tool which is, it looks very different.
Khipish sword. This is the very advanced Egyptian sword they invented in the New Kingdom, and it's double-bladed. And today we don't know how really they could use. I mean, it's different to their Chinese and Japanese swords like samurai and katana. We know how to use them. But this one, it will take a while to know exactly how to use, how to fight.
It's really different.
I mean, if we one day revive any of the ancient techniques of martial arts, we should study carefully how to use this, the Khipish sword.
We skipped Thutmose.
Thutmose III, he had a great battle of Megiddo in Palestine, and he was brave. He decided to take his army through a canyon. That led to surprise the enemy. Enemy expected that he would take the easier ways or routes to attack him, and that was a great thing. He won the battle in a smart way. However, he was advised by his generals not to do such thing. I mean, it was like a canyon. Only a canyon would be dangerous because allow few men to cross, and it would be easier to be killed by the enemy. So he decided to take that one step was not expected.
So do you believe, finally, because we are running out of time, Mr. Yasser, that the real Egyptian leader, army leader, was who?
I believe, difficult to say when. I admire very much Ramses II, and I respect very, very much Ramses III. Ramses III was the last great pharaoh who ruled Egypt. And he saved Egypt. I mean, he delayed our invasions, maybe a couple of centuries, for example.
We do have a lot of old commanders whom we should really be proud of.
Indeed.
And we are going to know more details about them in other episodes of our breakfast show. So, Mr. Yasser Kamel, our dear guest live here in the studio, our Egyptologist, author, and tour guide, thank you very much for being with us, sir, and thank you very much for your input.
You're welcome.
Very much, Yasser.
I see you.
Well, by this we come to the end of this episode of our breakfast show. Stay tuned on Nile TV International always for more updates, news, programs, and for more details, please log on to www.nileinternational.net. This was Nermeen Abdurrahman, and I had all the pleasure to have with me my dear colleague, Mahistra Rabia.
Thank you very much, Nermeen, and thank you very much all our dear viewers for watching our episode of the breakfast show. Tomorrow with a new crew. Till then, it's good.